society, right?
Well, that's what we've all been told, apparently. Anyway,
Oh,
boom.
now.
Boom, and we're live. Well, and good evening and welcome to another edition of Life is People. Well, we were just saying before we went live about the great area of male and female dominance on this planet and where we stand as a species. So, well, tonight I've been looking forward to this for kind of weeks and weeks and weeks. We've had a conversation with both my guests tonight in private, and with Jennifer in public before. But tonight, I really want to get two people who really inspire me, and to really kind of thrash out a few issues. And and one of the things I know that particularly Melissa's keen to talk about, and we were talking about it, we'd be talking about it in private and stuff like that. And I'm just going to just kick this open, and I know I'm going to hand this over to you, Melissa. And I really want to hear your thoughts on, because you just before you went live, I mean, it's a very very good point to start. You were just saying, um, about the role of feminism, and even what you were just saying about, I don't believe in all that. So let's take it from a stance. I mean, because we hear a lot about, and I'll give you my angle, and I'll maybe lead you into this. I mean, right now in this part of the world, we've got a daily, and I call it like the purge. There's a daily purge going on in the media and the general just current paradigm around us that it's basically just purging away, and it's chipping away at this idea of what male is, what female is. This is start. I mean, Oxford University just in the last 2 weeks have accepted the whole idea of many pronouns, and this is all starting to creep in. And I've always said this. It reminds me of Orwell. It reminds me of stuff he wrote about. This is the use of how they manipulate language, and the heart of this. And this is what I'm saying, is this feminism one, because it seems to be a banner that everybody seems to fly a flag for, and it seems to be creeping into everything. And all I'm hearing over and over again is that males are the problem. Now, okay, I don't mind all that. And you could even argue on a wider level hey, it's a swinging of the pendulum of time, that maybe in the 50s and the 60s it was very male dominated. Now there's this swing back, and at some point we're going to meet in the middle. And that's fair enough. That's all part of the cycle of life. But in the meantime, and it's like everything else, while all this is going on, there's young men being harmed because they don't fit into the criteria of what society's been, and that's not being spoken upon. And I think I can speak upon that as a male, because male suicide isn't spoken upon. So maybe that's a really good point. I want to sort of chuck over to someone, to both you two, really, because I think male suicide and a lot of the male issues are creeping from this, as I said before, this paradigm here, what we hear. And I understand it's in a very small selective media, but that media has a lot of power, and they are spreading this anti-male thing that is causing males to die, and nobody wants to talk about that. So I've got two females in this conversation, and I want to hand over to you. It's a very kind of wide point to start this off, but what your particular, both your feelings from being, from the other side of you're in America, you're both females. How do you feel about what I've just spoken upon about, particularly male suicide, and how that, particularly in your part of the world, is portrayed? Because again, just before I hand it over across to you, I mean, a lot of the last election was all about just vote Hillary just because she's got a vagina. And I thought, if we've really broken down to this level of sophistication. So I wanted to really kind of hear your thoughts, really, because I hear it's easy to go and hear a lot about this is what you're supposed to be like as a female, and this is what it's supposed to be like as a strong woman in the 2016. And I want to really able to hear the reality from both your sides. So I think I'll hand this over to you, Melissa, first. So that's a very long-winded introduction, but before we go further, anyway, how are you tonight anyway, Melissa?
Oh, I'm great, thank you, Tim. And I think you've done enough mansplaining for tonight.
That's cool. I'll just shut up for next time. That's perfect. No, that's good with me.
You know that expression, right? Are you mansplaining? Horrible. It's like, what, if a man can't open his mouth? Listen, I wrote down a few little thoughts before I came on so that I wouldn't run out of stuff to talk about just over the last couple of hours. And what I realized was I noticed this 15 years ago. The whole feminist movement and this whole third wave feminism has become so prominent in the media, and really the legacy, mainstream media that's pushing this weird cultural Marxist left-wing weird thing that's going on. And only 7% of women are really proclaim themselves as feminists, but they seem to shout the loudest over everybody, and they're assisted by the media to create this paradigm. Now, what I thought about earlier was I was realizing this 15 years ago. What was pissing me off was shows like Everybody Loves Raymond and commercials, and wherever it went back to the honeymooners, back to this weird thing where every TV show, every movie, the man is the buffoon, he's the idiot, he can't think for himself, his wife is the smartass, intelligent, kick ass, I can do everything, you can't do anything. And I'm like, why is this happening? And like I said, this is 15 years ago I was noticing this. This is before. So it's coming from the media, it's coming from Hollywood, it's coming from a narrative that hadn't quite crept into the consciousness of the college kids that were coming up. Now they're all marching and picketing and screaming, and it's like this was going on long before. And it really annoyed me because men were being emasculated. Married with children. Okay, yeah, she's kind of a dumb lady, but Al Bundy, he's just a dumbass shoe salesman, and she's this, and it's like it really annoyed me. And the whole feminist movement right now is just, picking up steam for the last 2 years. Actually, the last year, it's really gotten loud and annoying. And I'm so absolutely happy that YouTube has responded. When there's this horrible narrative on this side, there's going to be a pushback. And all of your anti-SJWs, anti-feminist videos that are coming out now, hooray! And as for the male side of it, I really can't wait to see that new Red Pill movie. There are actually 2 movies. There's one on YouTube called The Red Pill, and it's some kind of conspiracy theory movie, and that's not it. There's actually another movie called The Red Pill. And the feminists were actually protesting in Melbourne, Australia, and I think in Canada too. They were trying to close it down. It's like, how dare you? It's like they can't hear another different thought or something. What are they so scared of? I don't understand that. But it's just a crying shame. And
well, just to speak upon that, Melissa. I mean, you asked a question there, and I think the reason why they don't want to hear any of this is because if your mindset is stuck in an ideology, and that ideology has to shape reality, and then a fact comes along that doesn't fit to the reality that you formed around it, you will do everything to deny that and make that not seem the truth. And that's what I was saying before, mate, when I was preempting this, saying George Orwell spoke about this in his time. This is what communism was about. It was. This is the analogy I use. The way we've got to know. I mean, I think it's fascinating you mentioned 15 years, because this is a perfect example of how people are shifted into totalitarianism, into losing their self-awareness, their self-sovereign what they are as beings. It goes like this. Someone comes along to you, puts an idea up, creeps right up to you to about a foot away, and pushes an idea in your head, and you react to it, and then they just disappear. Then they walk away, and then about 2 months later they come up to you and do it again, and you do it, and about a year time you're like, what am I doing this for? How did this lead into this? Now, one of the fascinating books I would definitely recommend is Ordinary Men. It was written by someone who studied about what happened in Auschwitz, and how did the normal German man average, because a lot of the people who did a lot of the atrocities in Auschwitz and under the Nazis, they were born pre-Hitler, so they weren't kind of a new millennium generation who just brought up under an ideologue. And what they said they did it was literally a step-by-step process, what I've just explained, of just doing something, walking away. And that's exactly why, Melissa, I think that these people don't want to listen to anything else, because, as I said, it shakes their idea, how they see the world, and they can't, instead of just accepting facts, they have to invent 28 new pronouns. Instead of just accepting this, they have to, that's because they're so deeply traumatized. Now, I mean, if you want to get into a really deep question, I think that a lot of this trauma comes back from maybe when they were a child, and that's why they've got these deep hatreds for parenting and everything like this, because I think maybe they would, maybe abused as children. That, I think we're seeing the lashings out of a traumatic, brain that's been literally traumatized as a child. But that's something I haven't studied a lot, but that's just a thought of mine.
No, I agree. No, it's the breakdown of the family unit, and the fact that since the cultural revolution, the women's lib, all this free love from the 70s, the breakup of the American family, the fact that there's more and more and more single women. There are no fathers in the household. There's an age of entitlement where everybody gets an award, and it's the product of outcome as opposed to merit and competition. It's so multi-layered, it's ridiculous. And there's a lot of it has to start, from what I understand, a lot of it has to start back in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, back when Russia was still under communism, before the wall fell. There's a video on YouTube. I don't know the name of it. You'd have to search for KGB infiltration. There's a KGB agent, and he was part of the Russian journalist welcoming team. He did what would you call it? He was basically trying to get journalists and famous people. Like, remember when Jane Fonda went over to Russia, and they were calling her, all bad names, because she was all into, like, oh, communism is cool. This was back in the late 70s. So they had a lot of famous people, a lot of journalism going over to Russia, and they were treating them really well and getting them drunk, and showing them around the country and saying, look, isn't communism wonderful? And then what they were doing was infiltrating the journalists, they also had a lot of the academics over there. So they were infiltrating them, and then bringing their views about communism back into the college curriculum. So what's happening now, the millennials who were born in the 80s, I think 81, 82 is when the millennials started. So what's happening now is, in order to infiltrate, you need a generation, you need at least 15 to 20 years for it to hit. And that is what's happening now. And even though the wall fell, and I don't know how much the old regime of communism is still around, or whether Putin's involved in it, I don't believe that whole thing where Putin got the emails, and it's a bunch of bullshit. It's just Clinton not being a sore to start a war with Russia or whatever. But the old regime of Russia, I don't know how many subversive things are still going on there, but it was there back in communism. And this is just catching up now with the college age kids who have been indoctrinated into cultural Marxism and communist thoughts. That is why every single college campus is all liberal, is all communist, they're marching around, burning the American flag. And feminism is just one tier, or the spearhead, of social justice warriors and cultural Marxism. It's just one prong. So anyway.
No, yeah, you're completely. This kind of boils down to really what I think is crucial to speak upon, because I think, and you just hit the nail on the head there. I mean, this stuff has never gone away. I mean, I don't think we have to look at, that's the whole point of the last election. We don't have to look at, the players on the stage as much, but it's more the idea. And this is where the crux of this matter is. And I think the reason why is this so appealing? Why is the idea of I mean, I always say to people, man, and you know, I mean, hey, I'm half the planet, you're half the planet, but I don't know what it's like in America, but over here, I say to people, just show me one law, show me one right that a male has that a female doesn't have. So females have conquered so much. I mean, this is what I'm not trying to say that it's always been great, but hey, the strides that have been made, and I think we're living in more equal times than ever before. I mean, man, this is the point. So, but I'm saying the idea hasn't gone away because this idea is. You think, okay, why is it so appealing? Why is it that we've got people, male, female, whatever it is, because there's males that call themselves feminists, and they want to jump into that thing. But why have we? What is the appeal of that in the age when we've got connections and real conversations going on? And I think the appeal is because it always boils down to this. When you can give it, it's a simple answer is there's always someone out there. There's always an enemy, and if we just got rid of that tier, if it's men or white men, or if it was this or whatever the enemy may be, and if we could just take that away, then everything will be great. That's a very appealing answer that's worked for generations and generations and generations. And I think that's why it works on a very simple level. That's why they want to indoctrinate kids with it. But what I find difficult to understand is we live in an age where we've got, like never before, more ability to understand the fingertips, the knowledge is at our hands, and yet we get people with all the intelligence, and they just, like I said before, they want to deny reality. I mean, right now, that's what I'm saying. Oxford University, the leading university in our country, is now opened its door up to all this 29 pronoun stuff, and you think, this is intelligent beings, supposedly. I mean, I know I'm not talking about people in university being enlightened beings. They're not, but these are people who have. They're not the rough end of the scale of humanity. These aren't the guys who are knuckle draggers. These are and yet they still don't see it. And I think what it is because it's very easy. I don't know how your thoughts on this. Maybe I'll chuck this over to Jenn as well. But I think it's very easy that humans are very susceptible to having easy answers. An easy answer is it's someone or just a little group of thought that's there, that they're the cause of all this, and if we could eliminate them, then it would be easy. That's what happened in the communist and the dictatorial times that we've ever had. It's always just picking an enemy, but that isn't there now, and that's what I'm saying. This is why I wanted to really talk with you two about, because that was from this side of the Atlantic. That was all that was shown in the whole election. It was just basically, if you're a female, you have to be, pro Clinton, because if not, you're letting the female cause down. And I just thought, is it really boiled down to that? And I really wanted to hear both your perspectives on what I've just spoken, particularly you, Jenn. And I mean, you throw your two pennies on. How do you feel about it? Because I know Jenn, you're another person. I mean, I give perfect credence to. It's never something that we've never discussed. You don't sit there and and try to push the feminists down to me, and that's what I'm saying. I think the people that really inspire me, as we've discussed before, never come with any isms. So I'm fascinated to know why you two think, you two have grown up in the same country, the same environment, and have come to this conclusion. But you probably know people in your circles. I know people in my circles who are completely 180 to what you're saying. And I find that very difficult. Is it because
I don't I don't know about Jenn, but I don't have people in my circle that are feminists. I would not. No, sorry. I just can't do it. How about you, Jenn? Do you know a lot of feminists?
Oh, I have people and people of all types in my circles, and I like it that way. I like this contrived sort of cacophony that comes from all of the opinions around me, and so I sometimes force madness on myself that way. But that's kind of how I learn, if that makes any sense at all. And
Yeah.
I can tell you, you were talking about good old Hanoi Jane. I was adopted in 1978 by a military man, and he held very strong opinions of anything deemed un-American or anyone publicly, with that tag, and I learned very quickly. He was very strict. I didn't wear sweatpants outside the house because those were goddamn pajamas. And these are just, small examples. You didn't wear jeans that didn't have a crease down the front and back, and you held yourself in a certain way, and women didn't cuss. Women did not use curse words. Now, I don't know you very well, Melissa, but Tim, I know that you know me well enough to know this little personality of mine didn't just come from nowhere. And there were a lot of rules, and they were based on what my role in society was going to be, on the conditions that were given, and how to carry myself, and when to interject my opinion and when not to interject my opinion. And he was a real hard ass, bordering on abusive at times, but I can tell you I love him with all my heart. We don't talk about politics. I'm 40 years old now, so things are a lot different. But that experience allowed me to have all of these questions, as this child, who was growing up in this environment where right and wrong were clear, and it was because I said so, and it was without explanation. Because of that, and because of the way I was shot down when I would interject or ask questions, that gave me this this incredible drive to recognize the questions, address the questions within myself, and then look for the answers to my questions in other ways. Because I wasn't living in the type of environment where I could ask a question, if I didn't agree with this, or if I didn't feel good about, my role, be it in the family, be it in society, be it in whatever, to open my ears and close my mouth, still address that question within myself, but look for the answers in all of the external answers, and not base those answers and my own opinions on what other people are telling me. So in the beginning, it sounds shitty, that I was constantly told to, what my place was and what I needed to do, without any explanation of why. But it created, this, where I'm at now. But I can also mix, humility. I am humble, and so because I disagreed. I don't know, and I know I'm all over the place, and forgive me. But it taught being exposed to people that I don't agree with, and in fact having them, charged with my care. And I've never had never until recently have I had very easy relationships with any form of authority, whether that's on a small scale or maybe a little bit larger. And that has nothing to do with, their gender or their, I don't know. I guess I find myself now finally starting to gain the respect of people that I went against, but still treated them with respect. People like my father, and we just avoid certain topics, but I do listen to what he has to say. But he's absolutely a sexist. He's not going to be listening to this, and nobody really knows who he is, so I don't feel bad saying that. But I've learned a lot from that backwards ass thinking guy. And I owe a lot to him. And finally, we're at a point where it's okay for me to be me. And I understand now that he, at all times, was coming from a place of wanting to make my life easier. And in his opinion, the answer to an easy life is by doing things in this very specific way that I just never could subscribe to. But we're finding our way. I didn't mean to make this about, daddy issues, but I'm going to shut up and maybe smoke a little pot and listen to you guys for a while.
Oh, are you would you consider yourself a feminist or not, Jenn?
There's not much. There are not many tags or labels that I would claim, in public or private. I've been accused of being a feminist. I've never really thought that I behaved that way. People sometimes assume, like, because I love freedom and I love weed, that I'm a Democrat. They also sometimes assume that because I have a vagina and I sometimes have an opinion, that I'm a feminist. And those are common misconceptions. And that's what they are. They're misconceptions. And I usually follow that up with a joke about, not only am I not a feminist, but or I'm sorry, not only am I not a Democrat, but I believe all pregnant women should be locked in a tower with a dragon until the child is born, for the sake of society. And
What?
well, I mean, it's absurd. The
No,
idea of
you know what?
go ahead.
You know what? Listening to you reminds me. I took an acting class when I was, I don't know, 20 years ago or something. Um, one of the little exercises we did, I had a female teacher. There were maybe 10 people in this class, and she had us stand in a circle, and she wrote stuff on the blackboard like "Go to hell," "I hate you," "You're the worst person in the world," "I'm going to kill you," any kind of aggressive, uh, um, assertive, horrible, angry statements. Everybody was yelling out things to write on the board. And she had us stand in a circle. And she said, "Whenever I point to you, I want you to step forward in the circle to the person opposite you. And I'm going to point to something on the board, and you have to say that to the person that you're approaching." And her point to this whole exercise was, the men in the circle could do this very easily, but the women had a real problem. It's like I had this girl come towards me and say, "I hate you." And it was like I started laughing because it was so weak and ineffectual. It was like, she said, "Well, I don't have this problem because I'm not American. I was born in Australia to a German mother and an English father. So they were both pioneers. I've got pioneer DNA in me. I don't prescribe to any of that crap." But she was from the South, and she said a lot of women from the South, or just American women in general, especially the South, they have a real problem with asserting themselves. And this girl coming at me was like, "Oh, I hate you," and I started laughing at her because it was just so weak. And there was no, we're taught to, women in general are taught to be mild. And especially when I was hearing you talk about your father, you said he was a like a sexist, or a regular guy from like an older generation that believed maybe women should not be not be heard or not be taken seriously. Or maybe you had a mother that, as a lot of people do, that say women should be quiet and should be polite and should not speak up. And I think that's, maybe that's not the generation now, but it's maybe our generations. You and I are both Generation Xers. And Generation X, we're on a totally different plane than the millennials that are in college now that are coming up. And I swear those women don't keep their mouths shut, but it's in a bad way. It's like, if you and I can get out of this realm of being told that women should be seen and not heard, then that's a good thing, because we don't have too far to go. All you need to do is open your mouth.
Well, listen, I'm a fighter, but I've also gained some wisdom, and I'm learning what to use, what to use my energy to fight, and what not to. And if I walk into an environment that I'm unfamiliar with, and somebody hits me with some advice that I need to be seen and not heard, I promise you I will be seen.
You mean
not to be an asshole, only if I have a valid point. And that's where the humility comes in, and I have to be constantly learning. And if I spend all my time, as as that if I spend all my time trying to show everyone, you know, that I'm right about anything, it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. So I don't mind if anybody's loud as long as, you know, as long as it's valid. But I'm running into a lot of people lately. You know, they're given this platform or this forum, and they're not saying anything. And
Are you talking?
from people who are.
Are you talking about mimes? That people
No,
aren't
no,
saying anything? Oh
no. I certainly have nothing bad to say about mines. I'm a big fan.
no, you said this platform. I was wondering which one you meant.
You know, just yeah, I meant it more archetypal. You know, just a microphone, just you know, a place where you can exercise a voice. But I think that, you know, and especially with younger generations, but I'm sure every generation before us has said the same thing about, you know, the dipshit generation below us or whatever. I don't think that about the energy and the passion before we're learning about the substance. And so you know, everybody's got a voice, and they want to use that voice like it's some kind of, you know, Ferrari that's sitting in park and not being able to be driven. Well, that's great if you've got a Ferrari idling, and I mean, you need to know how to you need to learn how to drive a Ferrari before you jump in it and take off. And I think that a lot of people are skipping that part right now and just going for it. And we're just talking over each other. And I don't know necessarily how that relates to any topic of feminism, but you know, for me, it's a distraction. Um, and I've had people about 4 years ago. I opened up something called the Home Improvement Showcase inside Chapel Hills Mall, and I was new in town, and there was, you know, there was this big shopping mall, and it had this open square feet of retail space. And I was taking these small part-time jobs as a consultant, marketing for home improvement companies. I just went directly into that niche, and you know, none of them could afford me, so I started packing them together, so that together, you know, I had a decent enough income to keep going. And I would only work with, you know, the locally owned and operated small home improvement companies. Well, as you can imagine, especially in a town like Colorado Springs, you know, I refer to Colorado Springs, Colorado, as the town that Jesus and the feds built, because it's churches and it's military bases, and you know, it's NORAD, for fuck's sake. You know, it's a strange feeling to look out your window every day and see NORAD and try to pretend that they're not looking back. You know, um, so I find myself in Colorado Springs, Colorado, not in any social circles, you know, building clients one at a time, doing the marketing for the home improvement companies. And it was this time of year, about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and we were coming up on Christmas time, and some of my clients wanted to have like kiosks outside the food court in the mall, which they charge outrageous prices for. And you know, midnight oil sessions with my bright ideas, I had the idea of bringing all these guys together and seeing what I could negotiate with the powers that be of the mall. You know, they've got a spot across from Borders. You know, they've got a bookstore. They've got Dick's Sporting Goods. It was right in between Sears and J.C. Penney's. You know, these are the big anchor locations at a mall, and I knew that this one spot had been empty for like a year. And so I went in and I negotiated, and I got 22,000 square feet of retail space rented to me under my, you know, marketing LLC for $3,300 a month. No retail sales. And $3,300 a month is what they were charging for one kiosk outside the food court for 1 month. And so I jumped in and I brought all these home improvement contractors together. I wrote a code of ethics, and I asked them to all sign the code of ethics and non-compete agreements. Well, listen, I know that you have to forgive me. Sometimes when you ask me what time it is, I tell you how to build a clock. It's a real problem. Sometimes it's fun, other times not so much. Anyhow, I say all that to say I'm new in town. I'm a woman. It's a small town. And I promise you, the home improvement industry within that town is the proverbial club or network. Um, it's the construction companies, and it's the it's for a woman who's new in town to show up and just try to kick ass and take names. But it was fun. I didn't necessarily make any enemies, and in the end, it was an experience in like failing forward. But I learned a lot about being a woman in a man's world, and that man who adopted me, his background was military, but the whole time I was growing up, he bought and sold industrial machinery and equipment, and so I was in and out of machine shops as a kid. I mean, I've always brothers and no sisters. I grew up to have 3 sons and no daughters, and now I'm on my first grandson. I am not going to sit here. A big part of my life, but women are too. And I think that, the separation, and you don't even want to get me started on the pronouns, Tim. My God, the pronouns. That one gets under my skin, and I think it's crazy that we're even talking about it. Right before I got on this call, I was listening to somebody talk about the trivium and the quadrivium, and he quoted Terence McKenna, and he said, the real secret of magic is that the world is made of words, and that if you know the words that the world is made of, you can make it of whatever you wish. And I promise you, he was not talking about those fucking pronouns. I just don't agree with it. Now, do I agree with just because I say that out loud, don't assume that means I'm on any side of any other issues that may be a part of the pronoun bait. And I know that people put a lot of work into those pronouns, and I don't mean to shit on anybody's work. I shit on no man's work or woman's. But I just think it's a big damn distraction. And the first real job that I had after the Home Improvement Showcase shut down, I was selling solar electricity for a company called Rocky Mountain Solar and Wind. And there were 3 women employed in the company, but I was the only one that wasn't in an administrative role. And the owner of the company, and this was a personal referral how I got in, but he had this reputation. Before I ever spoke to him, 3 people used the word misogyny to me in conversation about him and letting me know what I was going to be up against with this role. And I did end up blowing up on him one time because, we had this area called the bullpen, and that's where all the salesmen and the installers, kind of powwowed and did their job. And I had screwed something up on a proposal, and I exchanged east for west. It was a simple mistake, shit happens. And so he had come in, with this proposal that I had spent 3 days, working on, and made some, idiotic remark about, if you want a woman to be able to know east from west, you have to point out anchor locations such as shopping malls and places where they can buy their makeup and stuff. It was one of those just, and I'm just looking at him like, what? And it was very disrespectful. And I did end up blowing up. Normally I don't, because for whatever reason, I am, when I do come out with my voice on something, it can be that of, an aggressive, whatever it is, be it feminist or business owner or podcaster or journalist or housewife or whatever it is I am that day. I really have to watch my voice, and it's not because I'm a woman. It's because I want to take in as much as I can, and I want to start being more careful with what I put out into the world, and I want to make sure that's intelligent. And I know that some people go to the Bathtub Jenn website because they think they're going to find porn. I'm not offended by that. On in. it's not porn. You know, I hope you're not let down, but you know, I don't know. I don't have a problem with much, but I do start a lot of trouble. I don't know how that works out, but it seems to work. I'm talking more now than I normally do ever, so I'm gonna shut up. Somebody help me here.
It's okay. So
Well, I mean, go on, Melissa. I know you've got a lot of thoughts on a lot of what Jen was going to speak about, so I'm just going to.
no, I feel sad that you have experienced that form of misogyny that's going on. It's funny because I did work for a construction company at one point for a couple of months, and the guy that ran the company was a good old boy from the South, and him and all his workers, and I was sitting in the office and filling out filling out forms when people called in to say I need this done, I need that done, and then I would hand the slips over to the guys to go whatever department, whether it was plumbing or electrical, to. And oh, he didn't like me because, like I said, I'm in the South here, so there are a lot of good old boys and Southern things. But he was real, Georgia Bulldogs. He had a big truck and he had a big beer belly, and he was just all about her. And it was like, it, it didn't bother me. It's like when I grew up in Australia, my dad was around a bunch of Italians and Greeks. And Italians and Greeks have a whole different culture. There's more machismo. There's more macho going on there. The women stay at home. They idolize their mothers, and even the men who are like 20, 25 years old, they're still living at home, and their mom still does their laundry, and then they end up getting married and moving straight from their homes straight into a household with a wife who they expect to do their laundry and cook dinner for them. So there's this whole kind of macho. I didn't care. A lot of life has to do with who you think you are. If anybody, like as women, we go through life being really battered in terms of, oh, you're not pretty enough. All the magazines and all the media that says your boobs aren't big enough, your butt's too big, your butt's too small. You have to look this certain way, your makeup's not right, or whatever the hell, we get brainwashed with. And you a lot of women end up with self-esteem issues because of this crap. But
well, I think everybody does. I mean, I know a lot of men with self-esteem issues. A lot.
Yeah. So that's
different reasons, but
right. Men and women both have those kind of issues. That's kind of like surfacey stuff, and women get a little bit more of it than men do. But in terms of who you think you are and whether you have a voice or anything like that, like I'm not a dumb person. And if anybody was to come at me and say, well, you're a stupid woman, I just laugh at them, because it's like, I know I'm not. So whatever they have to say just bounces right off me. It's like, if any man comes at you like that or tries to get macho in your face, it's just funny. And because I think maybe you attract, or people attract other people in their lives, just in general, of things that seem to push their buttons. It seems like that a lot. Like if you have buttons to push, somehow the universe will direct you to the people that will want to push your buttons. That's the only explanation I can think of as to why I haven't been confronted with a lot of misogyny in my life. I haven't surrounded myself with anybody. Now, like occasionally you run into them, like the guy on the job, but not very often. And it seems like it's a case by case personal issue based on who you are as to how you see the world, and whether you have a problem with those people in it.
Yeah, I would totally concur. And this is a question I want to throw back to you. And this is, some of the most powerful women I've ever known in my life. When we have this conversation, one of the things that's always surprised me, coming from a male perspective, has been that a lot of these women have no particular problem. And you two have just eloquently spoken upon this. You don't overly have problems with the male sex, but the amount of women who really like I say, these powerful women who have really inspired me, they just talk about it's the women they find it hard to get along with. And they say, particularly in the Western world, the culture amongst women is just horrendous. When this is one of the
It's
reflections
horrible.
that I.
No, I agree. It's absolutely horrible. I find, you know, I find when I have when my husband and I are here together, if we have a group of people over, I will invariably find myself sitting at the table with my husband and the guys, and at the next table, it's the girls that are here, and I find their conversation completely boring and weird, like not interesting, not personal. It's very strange. And then I go sit at the guys' table and they're having a jolly good time. They're talking about all kinds of interesting things and I can join in. And it's like, I don't, there's an uneasiness between women and I don't know what it is. I really don't. It's like they're coming across with this kind of weird, superficial jealousy, pettiness. Everybody's kind of glaring at each other right below the surface. Um, I like I said, I have a really hard time with it because I'm just a person. I'm not like female or male. It's like I'm like pretty just I'm a person. I don't like project myself as the female first and it's funny because in terms of being masculine feminine, I believe that the spirit is not masculine or feminine, your soul or your spirit. It's neutral gender. There's no So if you come from a place of there first, the gender thing is something that I'm kind of getting into. I didn't wear dresses much when I was younger. I didn't feel comfortable in them. And now that I'm married, it's like I really need to sink into my body more and just kind of get more feminine. And what you I'm like 50-50, masculine, feminine. And my husband is pretty much the same way. He's got real strong feminine side, but he's in no way feminine. He just has a way about him. And it's like on the scale of 1 to 10, we're both fives midway. So we match each other. I find a lot of times that like a feminine 1 will marry a masculine 10, or a 3 and a 7 go together, and a 6 go together. It's really strange. So yeah, I don't know what that is, and I don't know if the whole I was heard the other day, a lot of the MGTOWs and the MRAs are having problems. There's one lady on YouTube. She had people responding to her video about anti-feminism, and they were asking her, like, what should I do? Because I can't find a woman in the United States that isn't a feminist or doesn't have weird ideas or isn't manipulative, lying, just all kinds of weird crap. And I think I'm going to have to go out of the United States to find a good woman. And this one guy is holding up his passport saying, I'm going to leave the country. And I don't know what other country he ended up in that would be more conducive to, like, a better woman. But it's the American women are strangely, they're harsh. They're, even though they're over sexualized and they wear a lot of makeup and high heel shoes and they do the whole sexy thing, I don't think they're very feminine. Because they don't have a need for a man. I don't need a man. I don't want a man. Yeah, they want you to pay for dinner, but they get offended if you open the door too many. What? I can't open the door by myself, and men trail behind like little puppies. But then I don't get the whole thing either. I mean, 50 Shades of Grey was one of the I haven't read it. I don't give a shit, but it was one of the most popular books. It was on the top of the charts for like months and months and months, and they made a movie out of it. So obviously there's a whole bunch of women out there that are somehow sexually, like, they want a man to push them up against the wall or dominate them. But in normal society, they're like, we can do anything by ourselves and we don't need you. It's like, what is that?
I think you just hit the nail on the head there, Melissa. And I've been fortunate enough to live for many years in other cultures. I've spent many years of my life living down in South America. You spoke upon in Australia, and a lot of this is just certain cultures. And I think you hit something upon the, I've recognised, like for instance, when I lived in Venezuela, it was like 7 females to 1 male. So the culture was completely different. And I think what you're speaking upon, and I've always seen this reflection that the people that complain the most, I mean, the people, I don't want to spread this out, but for all the issues, all the isms, all the flags that have been flown, you think, well, what country would you rather right now be a female? I mean, in the sense of the Western world, let alone, unless we're all going to live in the jungle and stuff like that. But, that's what I'm saying. And I think the reason they're like that is because, and this is another whole conversation completely, that paradigm, females have a lot of currency early on. I mean, man, females, that's why they can be so picky. Any 20-year-old or someone in their 20s to 30s, they don't struggle to find men. When I reflect my life, when I was 21, man, we as blokes, we were fighting everything to impress the other species, whatever strategy we took. But the girls didn't. They were just too. Men were just like, because the currency's high, they got the looks, and but then that starts to wane over time, and this is what you're finding in America and places like you're speaking upon, because it's kind of like they can be like they are, almost because it's like you were speaking upon. It's almost like we've had it set up to be this way, and this is where it's getting. I mean, I think you spoke upon it in your minds, and this is the danger. And we'll go right back to where we started this conversation. This is the danger of just turning a blind eye to stuff that's being taught to kids, because it does fester. And like you said, what we're seeing now, and all that you're just reflecting upon, that's 20 years of not seeing, and pump that. And you know what I mean? And I think it's, as much as it's easy to turn around, and this is my personal reflection, and say, oh, well, it's all magazines and it's all them. No, a lot of it is us as a generation. My generation, you're in the same generation. Look what we did to our kids. We spoilt them rotten. We gave them everything. We confused them all. And then we wonder why and we turned all our parenting skills, all the things that we knew, to the state and to the government. And I mean, it's one of the reflections of here we are at Christmas, and we see. I said it's like in your part of the world, but I feel sorry for any kid now, because it's kind of like when I was a kid, I loved Christmas because it was like the one time of the year I actually got something, a present. It was like, whoa, the one. And now, like, man, the people are spending. I mean, I read a report today where people are spending, like, I think it's average of 3,000 or 4,000 English pounds per over Christmas. And you think, these kids will just throw these things away, and and that's what I mean. It's all been lost. And who did that? Our generation. We did this to our kids. We spoiled them, and that's why I feel sorry for these kids now. And that's why I think one of the dangers. I loved. I really, maybe we're closing this tonight, because I think it is really good to speak upon it. Is what you were speaking upon today about the danger of just turning our eyes as parents, as the adults, and just allowing what goes on in schools and in the paradigm and on TV, and not realizing that, we shouldn't put our kids in front of the TV. Spend an hour with them, man. I know. I mean, I do. I've got a kid. I'm not one of these. I know what it's like, and sometimes you just want to sit in front of the TV and have 10 minutes to yourself. But generally, we've always got to be very about what we do, and I think that's one of the. It's my reflection. I think it's one of the things that we haven't done. My generation have been very culpable. We've handed all responsibility over and thought, oh, we can fill that nice little hole that we, by filling them with goods and everything else like that. And that's why the credit bills and people are in debt to their eyeballs. The kids have got iPhones at 6 and 7, and yes, and I think, like I say, if we can, I think that's a lot of it. And I think until we as grown adults start to do things like you're doing, highlighting what's going on in the culture, that is just adding mud to already muddy water. Go on.
But it's so multi-layered. This goes back also. Now, I was talking about the KGB back in the 70s and the communism that infiltrated the college, but also another video that I saw from the Rothschilds that started the Women's Lib. back in the, what is it, 60s, when they did the whole bra burning thing. And this started in the media. The media started a campaign like it was coming from the women, but it wasn't coming from the women. It was putting ideas in women's heads to be dissatisfied with being at home and raising children. And what this narrative that came out in the media was, we don't want to be like this anymore, and be dissatisfied. Why are we at home? Why are the husbands going to work? Why can't we go to work? And what he was told, this oh God, what was his name? I think Russo. His name is Russo. He was told by the Rothschild guy. He's like, oh, women's lib. And he said, yeah, what about women's lib? He goes, that wasn't a grassroots crying out from women. We put that in their minds. And one of the reasons we did that is because we only could tax 50% of the population. We wanted the women out there working too, so we could tax them also. So suddenly women are dissatisfied and everybody's marching, because all it takes is like a little fire under somebody's ass to start saying, hey, wait a minute, why am I at home all day with the kids? And then it just steamrolled into a whole generation of women marching in the streets and burning their bras. So then you've got like the next generation of women are out in the workforce with their children in daycare. Now, women can have it all. No, they can't. You either have a career or you have children. Children are a career, but it wasn't good enough. It wasn't satisfying suddenly. So that's just another layer on top of the whole, it's just one layer upon another layer upon another layer. And everything is just a product of all these different things coming in. So it's like we're competing now with years and decades of indoctrination, and I don't know who the hell's been like facilitating all this. It's coming in from all directions. So what can we do now? I mean, there's only 1% of the population that's transgender, but somehow now all the little kids in school are learning about like that queer kid stuff. That is, I'm sorry, I flagged those videos. I was so pissed off because it's like, how dare you? And they are literally, if the feminist movement isn't bad enough, now there's a transgender movement, and there's what, 1%, half of 1% of society is transgender. But they're teaching children in school now. Melbourne, Australia, there's actually, it's not bad enough in college. Now they're teaching 8th graders and 7th graders. They're teaching little boys about rape culture and about misogyny. And it's like, how dare you? And there are safe schools now where you can go and parents can put their kids into a safe school, which allows your kids to be transgender, queer, bisexual. It's like, what, at 8 years old? Are you kidding me? So that's just another layer. There was actually an interesting video I saw the other day. Stefan Molyneux, it didn't come from him, but he was talking about something called the RK factor. And it's just something maybe you'd want to look into. It's the R factor. It's genetics. It comes down to genetics and epigenetics. Basically, you're born with genetics, but epigenetics are something from your environment that can actually switch on DNA signals or fire off stuff in your brain. Our people are like rabbits. They tend to have a lot of children. They tend to exist. Basically, it's kind of like the liberal mentality is the R, and the K mentality is like conservatives. And it really does explain a lot about how liberals think. But once these genes get turned on in your head based to your environmental upbringing, I mean, you're done. So what they were saying, basically, all these kids that are coming out of college, all the millennials, that there's kind of no hope for them. Something's been switched off in their brains. Like, that's why they don't want to listen. And you can throw truth. You can say, oh, there's no wage gap between men and women. And they don't listen. it's like they can't physically hear you. And the whole thing with Trump now, which I think is funny, it's almost like in the world there's a divide between masculine and feminine. There's a battle going on, and this is the greatest battle on the planet. Because if we can't get together, we're 50% and 50%, we're 100% of the population split in half. And if we can't get together and we can't like be strong within ourselves or have a family unit, we're fucked basically. Because it's like, and Trump is this backlash against all this feminist screaming that's been going on, and the liberal media, and them telling us this and telling us that. And it's like Trump is this like stronghold of misogynist male energy along with Putin. And then you've got Merkel in Germany, and then you've got like Trudeau. He might as well be a woman. You've got an Australia. There's a woman. There's a couple other women in Europe that are leading stuff. But it's like why are all these Muslims pouring into Europe? It's because the women, where are all the strong men in Europe going, don't rape our women? Because all the men in Europe have been emasculated, because Europe has been more liberal for longer than America has. And from what I hear, what's going on in Ireland right now, liberalism and feminism has taken over Ireland too, and the whole political correctness thing. So it's going on all over the place. And it's weird because it's like I'm sitting in this like stronghold of like Trump is this like man, and you see him. I saw him on stage with 15 other the Republican candidates when he first started, and he was like the silverback gorilla on stage. He was like the alpha male. He's standing next to Jeb Bush, who looked like a little beta male. All of them did. No wonder he got elected. I know I'm going all over the place, but it's all like related. It's just
No. But you're right, Melissa. But I think at the end of the day, I think it all boils down to this. And and I think it's something you were speaking upon earlier on, that hey, when it comes down to it, you can't affect what goes on in your part of the world. I can't affect what goes on in my part of the world, but you can affect your life. And that 5-5 element that you said is perfect. And if more humans could get to that level 5 where they're meeting someone else on a level 5, that was a very wise, insightful thing to comment upon, because that's the urge that we need to tell people that, hey, I mean, like you said, all these isms and fights and stuff like that, at the end of the day, like you were speaking upon it, we've got to come together as a species, because I mean, it's another conversation completely, but who's talking about the rise of artificial intelligence? Who's talking about the fact that that technology is just rising at an exponential rate, and things are coming and that no one's even talking? Who's talking about? Nobody's talking about that stuff. And I think one of the things.
Are you talking about like? Are you talking about automation, or are you talking about transhumanism?
I just generally, I think the two are in some ways intrinsically linked, because I think one of the things that's definitely coming at the moment is automation. That's going to change everything, and I think this is the point. I mean, this is one of the things I wanted to sort of. I mean, you're speaking upon that all the time, that people are getting distracted about, like you say, feminism or this or ism or whatever ism or whatever they're being thrown about. It's kind of like, well, do you realize what's going on at the moment? Do you realize that in 20, 30 years' time, there's going to be no jobs for people? It's all going to be done by machines. And I just wanted, just before we do wrap this up, Melissa, I think it's like, I wanted to just give you my little parting thought on that. And I get that I'm an artist, I'm a writer, and I'm used to going down that doomtastic kind of line of thought and thinking, no, there is no hope because people are just, don't want to listen, stuff like that. But then, like everything else, I think it's time, you have to sort of to the other side. I think, well, okay, what was I like when I was 25? Did I listen to my parents? Did I fuck? If more they shouted at me, the more I knew it. And I'll tell you, at 25, I swore I knew it all. I knew it all. I was the most, just like every 25-year-old, you're full of all this confidence, and especially if you're a bit self-aware and so, I mean, are they any different from what we were like at 25? And equally, hey, I do agree with you. I think it's almost like a very difficult point, and I've spoken upon this many times, and I've gone down this So it is a very difficult process of almost reprogramming your actual your brain to get rid of all this viruses and stuff that you're being fed. But I personally don't think any human being is beyond redemption. I don't think that's the case. I think that's one of the it's an easy, like I said before when we started this conversation, there's so many easy things that are chucked out into this world, and that's what I don't like about this whole, well, they're beyond redemption. And like, no, hey, we've all got the ability. Hey, I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying it would be a lot of hard work, and it's not going to maybe shift a lot in our lifetime, but everybody has got it inside them. Everybody, because my bottom line is, if we start giving up on people, then like I said before, go and read The Ordinary Man and how the Nazis did it, because that's exactly it. We start to dehumanize human beings and say, well, they're just a part of that, and we can't afford to do that, because this is how, as I said before, that's a tactic that all authoritarian worked on. They've always just worked on dehumanization. And I think the hard work, and this is a difficult point, the hard work is having to be done by people like me and you. And I think that's just been done in our own lives. That's why we're having this conversation. That's the power of this conversation. That's why these things are relevant, because all we can do is change ourselves and not worry about everyone else. Like I said, Melissa, I've got to kind of almost finish this podcast, because I've got another one coming up, rushing up at about half an hour's time. So before I do sort of finish this off, and I think we can put a bookmark in this and carry this on at another point, because there's so many areas of topics I want to carry on talking to you about. But just before we do wrap this up, a couple of things. Where can people find you on Minds? And I'm going to, and secondly, what's your kind of lingering thoughts or parting message you want anyone who's listening to this conversation tonight to be left with?
Yeah, my Minds is Melisa, Melisa, on Minds. I have an avatar, a weird name. It's just my name. Yeah, I agree with you. All the videos I've seen of people yelling and screaming at each other on college campuses, and all the videos, and people not listening to each other. I mean, really, all you can do is take one person at a time and try and sit calmly with people and try and get through to them, try and talk to them, try and come to a consensus or agreement, or learn from each other, and especially men and women. I mean, it just really hurts my feelings that men are so, you know, you hear it all the time. You're a white male. I mean, honestly, if you're white and you're male and you're a Christian in this world, anyone can attack you for any reason, and it's okay, and it's not fair, and it's my duty in life to my husband is, oh my God, he's so wonderful. But it's not that he's wonderful or I'm asking something from him. It's like, what do I have to offer? And I think people in life are so me, and what can I get, and my checklist, and what I want. It's like, you have to love and respect and honor the man or the woman you're with. I mean, it comes down to that. If it comes down to the core of you respecting and honoring the core of somebody else. And men and women are just, I don't give a shit about transgender, and if you're gay, it's like, whatever, to each his own. I mean, the core of life itself is the relationship between men and women. And we really need to come together, and it really breaks my heart with what's going on with men today, because they're really being battered. And men need to stand up and open doors and say, no, I'm going to open the door for you. And they need to walk across the room and ask that woman out. They need to start standing up also. And women need to start saying, I need you. Because that's what men want most in life. They want to be needed. They want to protect. They want to provide. Let them freaking do it. And say, thank you. I love you. That's all there is. It's so easy. Just put your damn egos aside and just relate to each other and appreciate your strengths and his strengths. It's like we're complementary. We're not the same. And this whole we're all equal. Gender is a social construct. Bullshit. It's like all these people suddenly think that there's no such thing as genetics anymore. It's science. Yes, penises and vaginas. Hello. Your doctor didn't assign your gender. It's like, you know, I have my strengths to offer, and so does a man. And it's like you really, really, really have to get into the core of yourself and say, I can't do this alone. You know, we're puzzle pieces and we all fit together. And we fit together first as men and women, and then on a larger scale with our friends and family and our communities. But if we can't fit together as men and women, forget it. We're not on this earth to be alone, period. I think I'll end with that.
Well, that was, like I say, I can't think of anything more perfect just to finish this off. I just want to say, you know, before I do wrap this up, I want to thank you very much for your time tonight, Melissa. It was, I know how precious your time was, and it was a very powerful conversation. So I want to say from over here in the Highlands of Scotland to all over there in the, well, the southern part of the US of A, life is people.
Or thank you, Tim. I